It's a completely wild paradox. But if you look at the data and just the behavioral psychology of how human beings operate,
Right.
you arrive at this one inescapable truth. And that is the absolute fastest way to have less money is to spend your money trying to show people how much money you have.
Oh, absolutely. It's totally backwards.
Right. I mean, think about that for a second. We've all seen the headlines where a literal genius, like a neurosurgeon, a tech founder, or some Wall Street savant goes completely devastatingly broke.
Happens all the time.
Yeah. And meanwhile, there's a humble janitor
Hmm.
who has been, quietly sweeping floors at a local public school for like 40 years. And then he dies, leaving behind an $8 million fortune.
Yeah.
How does that practically happen? It's because the genius treated money like a megaphone to broadcast their status.
Yeah.
And the janitor, well, he treated it like a silent, invisible engine.
It really challenges literally everything we are fundamentally taught about success. We operate under this massive cultural assumption that money is essentially just math. Logic and spreadsheets. Like, if you're smart, you will be wealthy.
Right, like if I can do calculus, I'm going to crush it in the stock market.
Yeah, exactly. But the reality is that financial success is almost entirely about psychology and behavior. It's about how you handle the very human impulses of ego, fear, and just the desire to be admired.
Which brings us right into the core conflict we're unpacking today in this deep dive into the invisible wealth.
Yeah.
Buying freedom over status. Because from the moment we're born, we're conditioned to think about money visually.
100%.
We equate financial success with things we can physically see. The massive house with the manicured lawn, the luxury car, the designer clothes. We look at those things and our brain immediately fires off a signal that says, that person has made it.
But that visual conditioning is exactly what traps people. The source material demands a complete and, frankly, pretty uncomfortable rewiring of how our brains process success. We really have to draw a hard line and contrast two drastically different concepts that society constantly confuses.
I know it's a pair.
Being rich versus being wealthy, because they are not synonyms. In most real-world scenarios, they are actually opposites.
Wait, hold on. If our entire society is built on visible markers of success,
Yeah.
and we literally only learn by observing what others do, what are we supposed to be aiming at? Like, how do you even begin to strive for a goal you can't actually see?
Well, you have to start by completely dismantling what society currently tells you wealth looks like.
Okay.
What you see on Instagram or what you see in the country club parking lot, that isn't wealth. That is just being rich. So let's look at the explicit mechanics of being rich.
Let's do it.
It consists of three specific components: a current high income, flashing expensive toys, and crucially, a high burn rate. A high burn rate, meaning like the speed at which you are setting your cash on fire every single month just to maintain the illusion of the lifestyle.
The math on it is actually terrifying when you dig into it.
I bet.
When you are rich, you might be bringing in $20,000 a month. On paper, you are in the top 1% of earners.
Right, you're killing it.
Exactly. But if your massive mortgage, your luxury SUV lease, your private school tuition, and your designer wardrobe cost you $19,500 a month?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you aren't financially free. You have a massive burn rate. You are basically running on an exhausting treadmill set to maximum speed.
But play devil's advocate here for a second. If I spend 8 grueling years in med school, or if I grind 80 hours a week at a startup to finally land that massive executive salary,
That's right.
shouldn't I get to enjoy the toys? Isn't the whole point of sacrificing your 20s so you can buy the nice car in your 30s? It feels unnatural to earn that much and live like a broke college student. It feels unnatural because we confuse income with wealth. Psychologically, a high income is incredibly dangerous if you haven't mastered your ego.
Really?
Yeah. What happens to almost everyone is a phenomenon called lifestyle creep. Your spending automatically expands to match your new income.
Yeah.
You get a raise, so you upgrade the apartment. You get a bonus, so you upgrade the car. You aren't actually upgrading your baseline happiness or your financial security. You are just upgrading the trap.
Upgrading the trap. I like that.
You become completely dependent on the next paycheck to fund the lifestyle you've built.
The way I picture this version of being rich is like a flagship smartphone running 20 incredibly heavy, graphic-intense apps all at the exact same time.
That's a great analogy.
Right. The screen is turned up to maximum brightness. It's flashy. It looks absolutely amazing to anyone glancing over your shoulder. That's your high income and your visible status. But internally, the battery is draining so incredibly fast. And that's the high burn rate. And because the battery's always 30 seconds away from dying, that phone constantly, desperately needs to be plugged into the wall.
Exactly.
And the wall in this scenario is the 9 to 5 grind. You can never unplug. You look great, but you are literally tethered to your boss.
It's actually worse than just needing to be plugged in. Those heavy apps running constantly are actively degrading the phone's hardware over time.
Oh, it's true.
That is the chronic stress of carrying a high burn rate. You are essentially a highly paid, indentured servant to your own lifestyle, and you have absolutely zero margin for error.
Margin of error. Like what happens if the power goes out and you can't plug the phone in?
Precisely. In behavioral finance, this is called a lack of a margin of safety.
Okay.
When you are running a high burn rate, you have no buffer between you and disaster, a medical emergency, and an unexpected corporate layoff, a sudden dip in your industry.
Everything just collapses.
Yes. Your entire shiny, visible life shatters instantly because there is no structural integrity beneath it. The rich person is living on a razor's edge, entirely dependent on everything going perfectly according to plan.
Man, so if the visible rewards we're all chasing are actually just traps designed to keep us tethered to a desk, what does actual financial success look like? What is the alternative to the treadmill?
The alternative is the core concept of being wealthy. If being rich is loud, visible, and highly stressed,
Yeah.
wealth is silent, hidden, and incredibly calm. The text defines being wealthy by three distinct mechanisms: the money you do not spend, your hidden assets, and pure, unadulterated freedom.
The money not spent. I mean, that fundamentally defies how we're taught to understand money.
How so?
Well, the only utility money has is its ability to be exchanged for things like a $100 bill sitting on a table does absolutely nothing.
But that is the exact paradox we have to unpack. We are heavily influenced by mimetic desire.
Mimetic desire.
Yeah, this is the psychological theory that we don't actually know what we want independently. We learn what to desire by watching what other people desire.
Oh, I see.
We use physical objects as social currency. But true wealth is completely invisible. You cannot see the luxury cars someone didn't buy.
Right.
You cannot see the broad market index funds quietly compounding in their brokerage account. You can't see the massive amount of high-interest debt they don't have. Because human beings are mimetic creatures, we only emulate what we can physically see.
Which means we are constantly copying the wrong homework.
Exactly.
We emulate the guy in the least luxury SUV who is secretly having panic attacks about his credit card bill instead of, the woman driving the 10-year-old sedan who has $1 million in appreciating assets and sleeps like a baby every night.
Exactly. And the reason the woman in the sedan sleeps so well brings us to the actual mechanics of how invisible wealth is generated. It isn't just about hoarding cash under a mattress.
Thank goodness.
It is about understanding and unleashing the mathematical phenomenon of compounding.
Okay, we need to slow down and really explain compounding. Because people hear that word and their eyes immediately glaze over.
It does sound like an advanced accounting term.
Right. But it's actually just a psychological behavior, isn't it?
It is entirely psychological. Because our human brains are literally not wired to comprehend it.
What do you mean?
Our brains think linearly. We think in terms of 1 + 1 = 2, 2 + 1 = 3. We expect our efforts to yield immediate, proportionate, visible results.
Makes sense.
But compounding doesn't work like that. Compounding is exponential. It's the concept that your assets generate earnings, and then those earnings generate their own earnings.
So instead of a simple addition problem, it's like a hockey stick curve.
Yes. And the problem with the hockey stick curve is that the long handle of the stick is completely flat.
Ah.
Mathematically, the heavy lifting of compounding doesn't happen in year 1 or year 3 or even year 7. If you start investing, your growth for the first decade looks incredibly boring.
It just sits there.
Right. The explosive, exponential growth, the blade of the hockey stick that only happens in year 15, year 20, year 30. Therefore, compounding requires immense psychological endurance. It requires you to ignore the urge to dig up the seed to see if the roots are growing.
I used to think of this like planting an oak tree, but let's make it more active for everyone listening.
Okay.
Think of investing your money not as saving, but as building a massive robotic workforce. Every single dollar you save and invest is a little robot employee.
I love that.
And their only job, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, is to go out into the market and earn you tiny fractions of free time.
That is a much more accurate way to visualize it, because when those robots earn a return, say an 8% return on your investment, they aren't just bringing you back cash.
What are they bringing back?
They are bringing back new, smaller robots. And the next year, those new robots start working for you too.
Okay, so when you get a bonus at work
Mm.
and you immediately go out and buy a $70,000 luxury car to show off to your neighbors,
Yeah.
you aren't just buying a car. You are systematically firing 70,000 of your best robot employees. You are executing your own workforce just so someone at a stoplight will look at you for 3 seconds.
You are slaughtering the very engine that was meant to buy your freedom.
Wow.
And this brings us right back to the janitor and the genius. The genius neurosurgeon optimized for maximum visible status and maximum immediate return.
Right.
He leveraged himself with debt to buy the biggest house and the nicest cars. When a minor economic downturn hit, his lack of a margin of safety wiped him out.
Completely.
The janitor, on the other hand, had an enormous margin of safety because his burn rate was incredibly low. He kept his robotic workforce employed for 40 uninterrupted years. He just let the exponential curve do the heavy lifting in the background, entirely unseen by anyone.
So how do you actually apply this? Because mathematically, the robotic workforce makes perfect sense. But emotionally, when you're a young adult, scrolling through social media, and every single person in your feed is on a yacht, or doing bottle service, or posting the steering wheel of their new sports car,
It's tough.
choosing not to spend feels incredibly isolating. It doesn't feel like you are building a robotic workforce. It feels like you are punishing yourself.
It only feels like punishment if you are still operating under the old definition of wealth.
Okay.
You have to undergo a fundamental shift in how you view transactions. The text synthesizes this into the ultimate unavoidable trade-off.
Which is?
Every single financial decision you make is a binary choice between buying status or buying freedom.
Okay.
There is no middle ground.
So you have to reprice the world.
Exactly.
You can't look at a price tag and see dollars anymore.
Yeah,
You have to look at a price tag and see your own finite time.
that is the exact mechanism. You have to calculate your real hourly wage. Not your salary, but what you actually make after taxes, after the cost of your commute, after the cost of the clothes you have to wear to the office.
Let's say your real hourly wage is $50 an hour.
Okay, let's play this out with real numbers.
Say I want to buy a designer watch for $5,000, purely so I can roll up my sleeve in meetings and have people notice it.
If you buy that watch, you aren't spending 5,000 arbitrary pieces of paper. You are legally agreeing to surrender 100 hours of your actual finite human life to your boss.
Ouch.
You are trading away over 2 weeks of your limited time on this earth, sitting in a cubicle or in stressful meetings, just to get a piece of metal on your wrist.
And it's actually worse than just the 100 hours, isn't it? Because of the opportunity cost.
Oh, absolutely.
If I had given that $5,000 to my robotic workforce instead and let it compound over 20 years on that hockey stick curve, well, actually, that initial $5,000 could have grown into enough money to pay for a full year of my living expenses later in life.
Exactly.
So that watch didn't just cost me 100 hours today. It literally cost me a year of early retirement. I incinerated a year of my future freedom for a short-term status flex.
That realization is the psychological shift. It completely flips your emotional relationship with money.
Yeah.
When you view your unseen assets not as numbers on a screen, but as stored energy, stored time, the mimetic desire to buy the watch just fades.
Stored energy. I really love that. Money is just caloric energy you've expended at your job, captured and stored in a financial battery to be used later.
Precisely.
Instead of feeling deprived because you didn't buy the designer shoes, you feel a massive surge of empowerment because you just bought yourself another week of financial independence.
Yes. You realize that the invisible money sitting in your investment account is actively working to buy back your Tuesday mornings.
Oh, that's good.
It is buying back your ability to say no to a toxic boss without panicking about your mortgage. It is buying back your option to completely pivot careers at age 40 or take a 6-month sabbatical to travel.
So true.
When you weigh the price of a luxury car against the price of absolute autonomy over your own daily schedule, status symbols suddenly look incredibly cheap and appealing.
Because freedom is the ultimate luxury item, but it's an invisible luxury. No one at the grocery store knows you have the power to quit your job tomorrow.
And that is why it requires ego suppression. You have to find significantly more joy in the unseen security than you do in the seen validation of strangers.
Yeah.
If you require other people to visually acknowledge your money in order for you to feel good about it, you will always be poor in time, no matter how astronomically high your income gets.
Because the goal line for visible status never stops moving.
Never.
It is a game designed to never be won. If you stretch your budget to buy a BMW, your brain will feel a temporary hit of dopamine. But 6 months later, your neighbor will pull up in a Ferrari.
Right.
Suddenly, your BMW feels inadequate. So you leverage yourself further to get the Ferrari, only to realize the guy at the country club just bought a private jet.
It never ends.
You can never win the visible status game because there is always someone willing to run a higher, more reckless burn rate than you.
The only game you can actually win is the invisible one. Because in the invisible game, the only opponent is yourself. It is just you quietly deciding exactly how much of your own future you want to own.
This completely reframes the entire concept of the 9-to-5 grind. We think we are trapped by our employers, but most of the time, we are actually trapped by our own mimetic desires and our high burn rates.
Perfectly said.
Let's quickly recap the vital distinction we've unpacked here, because it is the fundamental key to escaping that treadmill. Being rich is a high burn rate, high stress visual performance.
Yes.
It is a fragile facade that forces you to constantly trade your time to maintain objects meant to impress people who are likely just as trapped and stressed as you are.
And on the flip side, being wealthy is the invisible, steady accumulation of hidden assets. It is the deep structural margin of safety.
Right.
It is the robotic workforce of compounded interest that eventually grants you absolute freedom and bulletproof security.
You cannot buy your way out of the 9-to-5 by spending on visible status. You can only buy your way out by accumulating invisible options.
Which brings us to the central directive from our source material today. It is a candid, urgent call to action that requires an immediate change in behavior.
What do they need to do?
You have to stop upgrading your lifestyle every time your income increases. Stop incinerating your future time to buy the temporary admiration of people you don't even like.
Yeah.
Take that extra money and start aggressively upgrading your margin of safety. Employ your dollars to buy back your autonomy.
So the next time you open a social media app, you feel that visceral pang of jealousy looking at someone else's extravagant vacation or brand new sports car, I want you to run their life through this new filter.
Do it.
If true wealth is entirely invisible, how much of that visible success you envy is actually just a highly leveraged, high-stress burn rate tying them to a job they hate? And more importantly, what would your own life look like a year from now if your absolute biggest flex wasn't a logo on your chest, but simply having 100% unquestioned control over your Tuesday mornings?